We're at Nazareth Village. We are actually in the town of Nazareth where Jesus grew up. We don't know exactly where he was, but this is definitely has the ruins and rebuilt ruins of the town at Jesus' time. This here is hyssop, and I wanted to point it out because it's so frequent in the scriptures, and it's a wonderful symbol of how God cleanses us inside and out. First of all, the branches of the hyssop acted like a broom, and Moses dipped them in the blood, or a priest, and then sprinkled them on the altar or on the people, whatever he was cleansing in the spirit. But also David wrote in the Psalms, in Psalm 51, "Cleanse me with hyssop and I shall be white as snow." They could use this for bathing, a bathing herb, and you could also drink a tea out of this and would cleanse your blood. So look at the picture. God would cleanse us. When he cleanses us, it's thorough. It's inside and out, and it's also for everybody when they sprinkled the people. We're in Nazareth Village, very much the type of synagogue. Jesus would have read that famous scroll from Isaiah where he basically said, "I'm the Messiah," and then they wanted to run him off the cliff in the town. I'll explain that a little later. But remember, compare this to Chorazin. It's very similar, at least in the sense that the synagogue had this communal effect to it where everybody could see each other, and it was an intimate scale.
To that tank on that side. Okay, that's a little tank over there. Hannah has to wash the wool multiple times over to get the stench off, because I'll tell you, my friends, it smells really bad.
I can
Really bad.
imagine.
And then while the wool is still wet, they also have the possibility of coloring the wool.
We're in the synagogue in Nazareth. When we made the comparison in Chorazin, this is where Jesus read the scroll. The only other thing I wanted to follow up on is the communal attitude of this layout. And you know, in the New Testament, it says, it uses the word church, which is really not in the Bible because it implies that there's this big government. When really, as Martin Luther translated it, it was Gemeinde, community. And so is the synagogue. It's a Knesset. It's a synagogue. It's a place of gathering, and it's for the community level. Okay?
Valley, and on the right side of the valley is a little ridge that almost looks like it's got two towers on either side of it. In Hebrew, we imagine that looks like a cow, and that the two towers are two horns. So it's called the horns of Hittim, the horns of the wheat field. And if you can imagine that whole field full of wheat, and this was the scene of one of the most famous battles of history, the battle between the Crusaders and Saladin in the year 1187. And Saladin, the Crusaders have already been in the land at this point for 90 years. And now the Muslims under Saladin are pushing back. And Saladin has come up and taken Tiberias on the Sea of Galilee. The Crusaders Crusaders are headquartered just north of Nazareth, and so they come and meet in the valley over to the right. Of course, it's a huge victory for the Muslims under Saladin.
Catholic order, the legionaries that they stood in Mexico, decided, discovered that they were actually about to build an archaeological site. They did have the altar, but they could have just covered it over and built around it. But they decided that they would try to raise the money to excavate it out properly so that we could come and see that they found where Mary Magdalene was, and that's to their credit. And Sharon was telling me how much money went into
We're at the Sea of Galilee, at the site that is believed to be the place where, after Jesus was resurrected, he cooked breakfast for the disciples. More importantly, it's where he did a threefold restoration of Peter's ministry after Peter's 3 denials. He asked Peter, "Do you love me?" 3 different times, 3 different ways. And Peter realized in the questioning that Jesus was asking, "To what level do you love me?" And Peter finally admitted, "I love you at a very strong friendship level." And so the beauty of this is that he said, "Well, if you love me, Peter, feed my sheep." And boy, did he do that. He sure did it.
I don't want a photo bomb.
Here we are at Capernaum, Jesus' headquarters for his ministry. It's interesting that here you see in the background industrial grinders of the era, wheat grinders, and and they were known for apparently for making these because hundreds of them were found here because of the salt rock that is present. What's interesting about this is there's an analogy here. Jesus headquartered his ministry here, and this is where they were known for making wheat grinders. In Hebrew thought, in a sense, Jesus was a wheat grinder because a good teacher cracks the grain and makes it edible for the student. We're at the synagogue in Capernaum. It was on the site where Jesus would have been, but it's a Byzantine synagogue. So I just wanted you to see how it still has those ideas of the synagogue being a place of unity and gathering. Ready? This is a fig tree. We're at Capernaum. It's a ficus. It's like the houseplant we have at home. So it doesn't produce fruit. So what's it for? It's for beauty. It reminds me of the story of Zacchaeus, where Zacchaeus was a short man and he wanted to see Jesus but had to get over the crowd. He had to get over his shortness, if you will. So he climbed up a fig tree, maybe something like this, so he could see him. But like I said, the ficus was for beauty, not fruit. The beauty of this story is that this short man overcame his shortness, and found a way to see Jesus. That's what Jesus wants us to do with him too. Find any way we can to seek him, and we will find him.
This synagogue is located on the site of the original synagogue where Jesus would have taught and worshiped. This is the synagogue where the people said that, unlike the scribes, Jesus taught with authority in the book of Mark chapter 1. It's the same synagogue where Jesus said, "I am the bread of life. Truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you." Of course, this angered many people, and they went away after hearing this. Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law in this town, and this white synagogue was built very differently from the black basalt of the local area, where the original synagogue would have been built by the centurion whose servant Jesus healed.
Jesus pronounced a curse on the town, along with Bethsaida and Chorazin, because so many of its inhabitants refused to believe in him, despite the fact that most of Jesus' miracles took place in this area of only about 7 square miles.
To open like a parachute, like you saw right here, go down to the bottom, and if there is any fish around, but to be honest, this is not the right depth. For this system, you need to cast your net to the shoreline only, up to 3 meters. That's almost 9 feet. That's the maximum. Wow. And you can catch fish. And a month from now, it's going to be the fishing season. Why? Because that's the time of reproduction on the Sea of Galilee. So the St. Peter fish go to the shoreline to lay their eggs, and that's what they catch them. Of course, they have only 1 month to catch them because the Sea of Galilee closed for 3 months for fishing from Magdala to Bethsaida, because that's the area to keep the population, the fish population healthy. So no fishing, no steering boat, no tourist boat, no speed boat. Nobody is allowed in this side. Now, I didn't catch any fish in this side. I'm gonna cast my net to the right side. And let's see what about this side. You remember in the gospel, Peter caught 153 fish in this side. Yeah. And they're talking about big St. Peter fish, up to 5 kilos of fish, just imagine.
Action!
She worked in Hollywood a long time ago. And go. Yalla.
How deep here?
Here we're talking about 20 meters. 20 meters of depth. The deepest point in the sea, we call it a sea, but it's a lake.
Yeah.
Because in the Old Testament, they didn't know the difference between sea, lake, river. They called the sea the Red Sea, the Kinneret Sea, the Sea of Mediterranean. So they didn't have the words for lake. But this is a very small lake. Very small lake. Now let's see what about your lunch.
Oh, lunch, yeah, do well.
That's part of the wall of Canaanite Hatzor.
Here we are at Caesarea Philippi. We're at the cave where Pan was worshipped. Water swirled around in this cave, and they would throw goat in and sacrifice it. But the important thing is that there's a lot of controversy whether or not Jesus actually, Matthew 16 actually took place with Peter's confession right here or not. It's not what matters. What matters is that the confession of Peter was given to him by the Holy Spirit. It was accurate and it fully said that Jesus was God.